Years ago, I sat at my kitchen table crying. The youngest of my 5 kids ran to me with a champagne glass in his hand and said, "Mommy, feel better." At age 2, he associated me and my mood with a substance. He noticed I was sad, so he reached his chubby little toddler arm up on the counter, grabbed that empty glass, and came to the rescue. I felt confronted, accused, and ashamed. That moment made me pause, but it didn't make me stop. I drank for a couple more years. Not only was I blind to the messages I was sending my own kids, I was in denial with my own relationship with alcohol. That one glass of wine that turned to 2, sometimes 3, and maybe a whole bottle by the time the night was over, was something I was already dependent on. It was my coping strategy. My 2-year-old made a connection that I hadn't acknowledged yet. As his parent, my example created the culture of alcohol for him. When you think of the war on drugs, you probably think of bad drugs: heroin, meth, cocaine, the opioid crisis. But alcohol is an easy access, entry-level drug, and it kills more people than all illicit drugs combined. And it isn't just killing self-described alcoholics. It's killing regular people, like you and me, your friends, moms, dads, grandparents. It doesn't matter if it's your fancy pink spiked can of seltzer or a bottle of cheap whiskey out of a brown paper bag. Alcohol is ethanol. Ethanol is an addictive depressant and a group 1 carcinogen. That's the same category as cigarettes, UV tanning beds, formaldehyde, radium, and asbestos. We don't picture our light beer or our expensive bottle Pinot Noir in the same category because as a society, we've normalized it. In fact, we've glorified it as a reward. We deserve it, and we are very proud of that. Despite all the documented health risks, and there are many, we practice what we think is moderation and responsibility with booze around our kids. Have you ever wondered why we don't model the responsible use of, say, cocaine? Just one little line every morning would wake me right up. Because it's illegal? Okay, how about moderate smoking? Just 1 or 2 cigarettes at the flag football game, just to calm our nerves, not to overdo it, but to show responsible use. That's ridiculous, right? Yet we do this on the regular with a substance that kills over 95,000 Americans a year. In the past 20 years, the death rate from alcohol has more than doubled. Over 100% increase in the death rate, and we want to show moderation with the substance causing it? I tried drinking responsibly. My rule, 1 glass per day. Moderate, responsible, right? Yet according to the National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, 1 drink per day, which equals 7 per week, in a woman my size is considered excessive high-risk drinking. That's a 5-ounce pour of wine, which is a lot smaller than the glasses I was pouring. So even when I was drinking at what I would consider to be a very responsible level, I was modeling excessive high-risk drinking to my kids. Now, before you take your cherry vodka lemonade or your fancy microbrew and run out of the room, let me be very clear. I'm not advocating prohibition, so calm down. Changing the culture of alcohol for young people is not as simple as us cutting back on or quitting drinking. We need to look further than that. According to the Council for Chemical Addictions, abstinence-based drug and alcohol education programs are not effective. Don't drink and don't do drugs doesn't work. Worse, if the messaging of the program at school, youth group, church, wherever it's taught, doesn't align with what kids are experiencing at home, it makes them even more cynical, especially teenagers. Before the just say no conversation ever starts, our example has created the culture of alcohol for them. Back when my 2-year-old played bartender, he wasn't in school yet. He wasn't reading magazines or watching halftime commercials. I was his example. And as much drinking as I had done in front of my kids, I'd never talked about it. I didn't know that age 3 to 6 is the time to start talking to kids about alcohol. Preschoolers and kindergartners. I thought they were too young. But by the time those same kids get to middle school, marketing will do the talking for us. Alcohol companies pay big bucks to make sure of this. There's so much advertising that our 11 to 14-year-old kids see at least 3 alcohol ads every single day. Social media, magazines, billboards, TV. This media overload, plus our example, and our lack of dialogue about it, sets the stage for their own relationship with alcohol well before they're legally able to pick up a drink. What are we showing kids when we say, drugs are bad, but excuse me while I fill up my quarantini and get on my Zoom happy hour? Don't drink underage, but it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Make good choices, but mommy needs wine. I've completed countless hours of education on this subject. I've done research, I've written articles. I'm also a woman in recovery myself. As someone who's been addicted to alcohol, I've been on both sides of this story. I didn't realize that any of my health problems, relationship issues, or crippling depression and anxiety originated from what was in my champagne glass. To me, alcohol was a friend. It was my self-medication, my liquid courage, and my coping mechanism for almost everything. And my kids were immersed in this toxic alcohol culture that I didn't even realize I'd created. That all had to change when I was arrested for a DUI. Along with court appearances, lawyers, huge fines, and embarrassment, it also included a court-mandated breathalyzer in our family car. The day it was installed, I picked up my oldest 2 kids at school who immediately saw our new car accessory. What is that? Well, Mom broke a rule. I drank and I drove, and that's against the law. And this is the consequence to make sure I never make that mistake again. And I took a deep breath, blew into the breathalyzer, and started the car to show what we all now had to get used to. I continued driving home, and their questions started flying at me from the back seat. Wouldn't it just be easier not to drink? Why do people drink anyway? If you can get in trouble for it, why do they serve it everywhere? Why do they serve it in restaurants when you have to drive home after? Mom, if you got arrested for it, why do you still drink so much? I didn't have any answers. And worse, I wondered what questions they weren't asking me. I didn't want to believe that something I enjoyed so much was destructive. I didn't want to recognize that my example was negatively impacting my kids. It was. As I was searching for answers to my kids' questions, I had to admit that alcohol could no longer take up any more space in my life or theirs. No amount of mommy juice was worth risking any more time with my family. Great news. You don't need to get a DUI or have a toddler serve you champagne or hit any other proverbial rock bottom to reevaluate your own relationship with alcohol. You don't need to have your car tricked out with a breathalyzer to start a conversation with the young people in your life about drinking. I'm inviting you to show our youth through your example how to manage feelings without a substance, to celebrate and reward and have fun in ways that don't require ingesting a poison. How about you? Do you believe drinking alcohol is a choice or a requirement? If your child or grandchild, niece, or student were here right now and looked up at you and said, "Why do you drink?" would you have an answer you'd be proud of? Our impact is powerful, and our kids are watching. Let's give them an example to be proud of. Thank you.